Welcome back to the Working Mom. So I want to tackle today one of the biggest issues that I think faces professional women, and that is, how do I pick a right daycare? First of all, a lot of women struggle with, should I go back to work, should I not? And then, okay, you've gone through that debate and you've decided you're going to work. Where do I take my kid, and how do I pick the right place? Particularly when it's your first child, you it's not something that you've done before, and so you're looking at it like, what's the criteria that I frame selecting this person? And the first thing, I'm just taking a peek at my notes down here, is every state has a certification process, whether that is for in-home daycares or for certified centers. And so you want to make sure they have their certification. Particularly when we look at, and you don't have to be certified up to a certain kid number. And so you want to be sure, well, first of all, how many kids are there? If it's, whatever your state requirement is, are they actually certified? So if they are certified, they will be randomly audited for cleanliness, what kind of food are they feeding the kids, what kind of activities do they provide for the kids, what kind of safety measures do they take, and then the kid to they're a little bit more than in business, they're a little bit more than licensed, they're actually certified, and someone audits them. And that's the first step, and that should be the first barrier to entry for any provider, whether in home or not. Are they certified? Next, when you start your interview process, first I would look at it as if you're interviewing an employee. So you first want to do a phone interview. So just get to know them a little bit, see if it's anything that you want to take further. Second, do an in-person interview. So schedule a very specific time to tour the facility, tour the home, talk with the providers, learn more about them, they can learn more about you, what the needs are, and then you can decide if you want to take it any further. I suggest the third step, and that is a random walk-in. Any in-home or center that doesn't allow just a random walk-in, that sounds crazy. So that would be your first and only red flag needed if someplace didn't allow for that or accommodate that. If you just surprised them one day and said, hey, I just want to come in, I just want to take a look around, we're considering this daycare, and so I just kind of want to see what's going on today. If they don't allow for that, they're not going to be a right fit. But what you're looking for is, when they're not on notice, how are they taking care of the kids? What's the general attitude amongst the kids? Is there a high level of stress? Is there a kid crying in the corner? How are kids that are hurt or crying, how are they comforted? And then what are the providers doing? Are they busy interacting with each other, or are they interacting with the children? If you walk in and your providers are busy interacting with each other, depending on what they're talking about, they may not be providing the right kind of attention to the children that children really need, particularly on the smaller end, when they're smaller kids that require a lot more crowd control when we're talking about 2, 3, and 4-year-olds. Next, it's got to fit in your budget. Just be really upfront with any daycare and ask, what is your per day rate? And if they're out of your budget, they're out of your budget. If you need to rob from some other area of your budget to get into the right daycare, I highly encourage you to do that. But I don't encourage you to blow your budget, because that will create other problems and other stresses, and you might have to pull your kid out of that daycare. So next, take a look at what is their kid to provider ratio. So first, understand, what does your specific state require from kid to provider ratio in a certified center for that age group. So for example, in my state, it's a 1-to-8 ratio for all kids older than 2. Younger than 2, I believe it's 1-to-2 ratio. So take a look at what is the general age group of the kid group, and then how many providers are there. If at any time you see say there's 8 kids there, and then there's one of those kids is maybe a 1-year-old, they really should have 2 providers. If they don't, they might not be the right fit. Or if, a lot of kids do half days, if you find that maybe they're kind of floating and in between those transitions when kids come and kids go with the half days, and there's not enough providers, that's going to be a red flag, because that's always when something happens, is when there's not enough adults to provide thought-provoking activities for the children and to keep them from hurting themselves, essentially. Next, if you make sure to go over any of your food requirements. So if you're taking your baby and you want them to provide breast milk, will they heat up the breast milk? Will they find it? Is there a place there where you can breastfeed? If you have a very specific diet for your children, if it's all organic or they're gluten-free or very specific food allergies, be really upfront with your providers about that. And if they have an issue with providing a separate food diet for your particular your child, you might have to bring that food. But if they have an issue with preparing the meals, then it's not going to be a good fit, and you're always going to be in this state of tension with your provider. So I'd say move on at that point. Next, this one's really important to me, and it's discipline. How do they discipline the children that are there? I believe kids that do need discipline, not just distraction. And a lot of the big centers, the big chains, do not believe in disciplining the kids. So putting kids in timeout, they go to distraction. So if one little boy hits another little boy, one little girl bites another little girl, they don't discipline those children. They just distract them with something else. I don't believe that is an effective way to discipline children, but that's my belief. And so any daycare that you send your kids to, you want it to replicate your family values, your parenting style as much as possible, so that what you teach your children at home is reinforced when they're at daycare. And it's not to say that any one way is wrong or right. You have what you believe is right, and so you're just looking for someone that reflects that as well. So next, and this is a little bit tricky, it can be a little bit uncomfortable to ask a provider when you're just thinking about engaging with them, but are there dropout fees, and what are those dropout fees? You don't know what may come up that you may need to pull your child out of that daycare. It could be your financial situation changes, and maybe you don't need daycare. Maybe you're going to need a less expensive daycare. Maybe you're only going to need it half time, or something happens at the daycare and you no longer feel comfortable taking your child to that daycare. You need to understand what are those dropout fees. So is it we can stop at any time? Is it a week? I've heard of even it as extreme as a month. And so get very clear with what those are, and make sure that it is in writing, so that you don't have someone trying to backcharge you for a month of daycare that you aren't taking your child to. And in that same vein, understand what are their days off and what are their vacation policies. So every daycare is going to be a little bit different with what they believe is their vacation policy. So daycares that I've taken my son to in the past have believed that if they go on vacation, or if they shut down the daycare, the parents should not in any way, shape, or form have to pay for those days. However, not everyone believes that. And so be very clear, what are their policy around when they have a sick day, when they're on vacation, and if for some reason they have to close the daycare, are you going to have to pay? References. Get them and call them and ask some of these exact same kinds of questions. Has your child been bit a lot? Have there been any issues with hand, foot, and mouth? or lice, or when cold season comes around, you know, how often do you think your kid gets sick from daycare? That can closely tie to overall cleanliness of the daycare and how they monitor the children that come and go from
because
daycare. A parent is going to tell you what they feel, because they wouldn't want to, if they were just stuck in a situation where they were stuck in this daycare for the time being, they are not going to recommend it to you. Hands down, no parent would do that. So ask for the references and call kind of unique happenstance or a unique tool that some daycares are providing, whether it's in-home or in a center, or even if you're talking about a nanny, is a webcam or nanny cam. They're very, I don't think they're commonly used, not in my experience anyway, but they are great. So ask your provider, do they have a webcam? Would they ever consider it? And if they wouldn't consider it, why wouldn't they consider it? And that might tell you a lot. Maybe they don't have one now because something with the wiring in their home, or it's something that they have plans to do. They've got to, they've got to do this X, Y, and Z first, and then they would love to offer their parents a full 24-hour-a-day view, if you will, of their children. If they say, no, we don't feel that that's right, then maybe just depending upon their response, you can decide if it's something that you want to continue to pursue. Finally, it seems like a no-brainer, but check their hours and how they approach late tardiness. So the 7:30 to 5, and it's a hard 5, can be very difficult to accommodate, because you got to always think, well, what happens if traffic gets slow? What happens if I don't get out of the office as quickly as I want to get out? And so make sure that the hours that they provide, also there's some flexibility for you in case something happens. And then what happens if you are 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late? How do they charge you for that? Granted, if your child is late, and especially if it swings after hours, there should be a fee to that. But what is the severity or the fee? And that'll let you know how much do they understand the life of a working parent, and how much are they trying to work with that. It can be really difficult for some moms to decide to go back to work because you are stressed by this decision of who is good enough to take care of my children. And there's no one that's going to be as good as you, so you just got to throw that idea right out the window. No one's going to love your kids as much as you do. But there are people out there that have a genuine love for children and genuinely want to care for children as their profession. And so seek out those people. Take your time. Start early so that you don't have a pressure cooker situation where you have to take someone that you're maybe less than comfortable with. And if you're not comfortable for whatever reason, go with your gut. Hands down, go with your gut. And so I hope that some of these tips, ideas, and questions were helpful for you when you are looking at putting your child into daycare. And so I hope everyone has a great day, and thanks for watching. Bye.